I can add a history. I can say on, what is the day today? On March 7th, maybe Prajwal commented the H3 tag due to the requirements of project 101. Okay, so what it means is this is kind of adding a history to the changes that is made to this index.html, which means it is saying, so on March 7th, 2023, Prajwal has commented the H3 tag because of the project requirements. There was a project that was initiated. The project ID was project 101. Because of this requirements of the project, the particular below piece of code is commented. Okay, so usually the history is all maintained at the very start. Okay, right after the body, the entire history of the page will be maintained here. You go ahead and add the history here. All right, make sense, guys?
Yes, sir.
You add a date and you add the user, and then you add the details on what they have added. Today, Prajwal added, maybe tomorrow, maybe there is Anjane added. So all that can happen. Maybe on 6th, he added something. Okay. So you can go ahead and maintain the history on what you have done to this file so that everyone understands what you have made a change. Even some people, what they do is commented the H3 tag at the line number. They will also add this line number 22, at the line number 22 to be more specific. Okay, that is also is a good way to indicate. So everyone knows what has been happening to this file throughout the history, because the file is maintained for a very long time. It's not until the company lasts, until the application is being used. It might be for decades. All right, make sure. So understood, guys, how this is helpful? Comments?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, super. So now let's go. Next entry, line break. So as the name itself suggests, the line break is represented by BR. Okay, BR is for a breakpoint. Usually earlier it was called a breakpoint, and now it is a line break, which is nothing but, this is very useful in terms of creating a next line, because the text wants to be replaced into the next line. So what it means is, suppose let's say I am adding a new para. Another thing, guys, before let me complete this. Let's say I'm adding a new para. The para is this one, the same para. So inside this para, maybe after the block of text, I want to start this rest of the text to the new line. At that time, I can go ahead and add a line break. So if I add this, from separated onwards will be started into the new line. And that if you see the output, so yenathrile paragraph is usually represented in a visual media as a block of text. Ilitana bantre. So which is here. But when I add a BR tag, which is a line break tag, so the rest of the code, rest of the text from the paragraph, which is starting from separated, which is here, is starting on a new line rather than continuing here. Illenatre, other nodal separated as the same line together, because we have not used a BR tag. Here, because of using a BR tag, the text is moved to the next line, which means it would add a line break. It will add a break within the element, that is paragraph element. So did you guys understand this? What line break will do?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, produces a line break in the text. That is what it does. Now, if you see this example, right? Another twinkle twinkle, it's a rhyme. Okay, twinkle twinkle little star. After the little star, you added a line break. And how I wonder what you are adding again a line break. Up above the world so high, you are again adding a line break, which means these three, these four lines will be, if you see the output, they will all be starting into a new line because of the line break. If line break was not there, ಇದು ಏನಾಗ್ತದ್ರಿ? Let's see. I'll add this. It will all appear as a paragraph, into a single paragraph if it is there. Now, suppose I want to remove this, I want to remove this, I want to remove this without any line break. And if you see the output, it will all be appearing next to each other without any line breaks. Okay, that is the use of line break. And again, another as I'm witnessing here, one important thing I want to bring to your attention, and that is about white spaces. White spaces ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ರಿ? These spaces that you see here, okay, this space what you see here, these are called the white spaces. In HTML, white spaces are irrelevant, which means you add lot of lines here, these many white spaces you have added and you have saved it. Now, HTML does not consider white spaces. It will ignore the white spaces. That is the reason there is no change here. It is not adding a space here just because I have added so many lines of white spaces here. Okay, white spaces are always ignored in HTML. All right, make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another important thing here is HTML is not case sensitive. Not case sensitive. ಈ ಕೇಸ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ರಿ? Upper case or lower case. Okay, there are two ways, right? You write ABC as a uppercase or ABC is a lower case. In HTML, the elements can be of uppercase or lowercase. That is the reason it is case insensitive. It is not case sensitive, which means I can write a P tag with capital P also. That is also fine. I can go ahead and write a P tag with capital P. So if I go, it can be a capital P or small p. Both means same in JavaScript. I mean in Python, in HTML. But JavaScript ಬರ್ತದೆ. Okay, in HTML. So what it means is, if it is small p or capital P, both are same in HTML. It's the same as you can write capital HTML or small HTML or capital HTML. This is also fine. Body or capital body, that is also fine. Which means HTML is not case sensitive. Is not case sensitive. So you can write in small or capital, it is up to you. All right, make sense this one? Idarthatri?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So now let's go ahead and see what else we have. You understood about line break. Now, what is called as a horizontal rule? Okay, a horizontal rule is nothing but, it is same as line break, but only difference is it will add a horizontal line. Okay, wherever it is added, it is represented by HR is horizontal rule. Like for example, you have these many paragraphs. The paragraph 1 is there, which is adding H2 and H3 elements, and then there is paragraph, and immediately after this paragraph I wanted to add a horizontal rule, and that is representing by HR. And remember one key point here, yaru question ಕೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ ಇದು. What is it that line break and HR, they don't have a closing tag. Okay, ಇದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ HR ಅಂತ ಇಲ್ರಿ, like this. There is nothing called as closing tag here. Okay, you can just use at the only one opening tag is enough. Why? Because you are not enclosing any text between them like this. Enclosing content ilri ಇದಕ್ಕೆ. Line break ಗೂ ಆತು, BR, which is for line break, and HR for horizontal rule. Both do not have a closing tag, and these are called a self-closing tag. Okay, now if you see here, interview questions that usually ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಏನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ Usually they will ask what is the line break, and what is it called, and why does it have a closing tag, and all that questions will be asked sometimes to you to check your understanding whether you know about that or not. Okay, so always remember. Now, what is an empty element ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. This is an important question. What is an empty element? An empty element is a HTML element that do not contain the contents. No content will be there, which is, if you see, uh, like a BR tag, content is what? Enclosed content. If you observe our diagram, right? So the anatomy, if I go to the anatomy, I'll show you. Where is the, yeah, if you go to the anatomy, there is something called as enclosed tag content. So for a empty element, there is no enclosed tag. BR does not have it, HR does not have it, hence they are also called as empty elements. Make sense? Idu artha ಆತ್ರಿ?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So now let's go ahead. uh, what was that we were discussing about? Yeah, horizontal rule. So let's say that I have added a horizontal rule. Let me save it and see the output, how it looks. So this is what the horizontal rule would look like. It will add a line. Basically, it will add a line, whereas BR will start in a new line. It will add a line break, whereas horizontal rule will add a horizontal line of wherever you have included. It is basically to separate two sections or logical sections. Suppose you are talking about two topics. One is about CSS and another is about HTML. And in that you want to differentiate them and you add a horizontal rule. Or there might be in a sports website. Okay, now espn.com, and you want to separate football news against the cricket news, so you can separate that with a horizontal rule. Just add a horizontal rule and that will clearly separates the two sections. So that is a logical separation. Whenever you want to do, you usually use a horizontal rule. Okay, so, for example, a change in the scene, in a history, in a story, or a shift in a topic within a section, you use a horizontal rule. Like, for example, this paragraph, then there is a horizontal rule, paragraph, horizontal rule, and all that. So, this is how the output would look like. All right. Now, so what else? There is a style. Now, let's go ahead to understand an important, again, a topic called as attribute. Okay, so now what is, there is a HTML element we saw. Now there is something called as attribute. So what is an attribute? If I go ahead and see HTML attribute, elements in HTML have attributes, and these are additional values that configure the elements and adjust their behavior in various ways. So what it means, like for example, there is a paragraph. Okay, paragraph is an element is there. Now you want to change the behavior of the paragraph or modify the behavior of the paragraph, change the behavior of the paragraph, or add some more details to the paragraph, then you will be able to do that using an attribute, using the attributes. And those attributes are always defined in the open tag. It is not defined in the close tag. It always within the open tag. Okay, you will be having a attribute defined always in the open tag. Like for example, one very often used attribute is called as ID. ID is stands for identifier. This is a global attribute. Again, understand, guys, there is something called as in attributes. There is a global attribute and there is a tag specific attribute or an element specific attribute. Like for example, if you know, like ID is here. ID is stands for identifier, and now I can say that as a para one, or maybe let's say, this is ID is equal to para 1, and this ID is equal to para 2. So now ID is a attribute and this is a attribute value. Para 1 is a attribute value. So always remember ID is called as a element attribute. Here ID is a global attribute. You can add ID to paragraph. You can also add ID to a heading as well. I can go ahead and add ID is equal to head 1, and again I can say ID is equal to head 2. So ID is a global attribute which can be used for almost all the HTML elements, whereas there is again a element specific attributes as well. Like for example, a is an anchor tag. Okay, anchor tag, usually for a hypertext reference you use a anchor tag. Anchor tag has got an attribute called href, which is for a hypertext reference. And if you see, the moment I add a anchor tag, it will automatically include this attribute, which means for an anchor tag, href attribute is mandatory and it is very specific to anchor tag. You can't use href for a paragraph element. Okay, you can't do that. You can only use it for an anchor tag, which is represented by a tag. Okay, and which is an anchor element in HTML. Here I can go ahead and reference anything that I want to link it. Like for example, http colon front slash, I can say google.com, and here I'll say Google. Okay, this is a anchor tag. Now the moment I see there will be a link provided, the moment I click that, it will take me to google.com. Okay, that is what the anchor tag will do. All right, now let me not divert from what I was talking about. What I was talking about is something related to attribute. So attributes will add more details to a particular tag. You can modify the behavior of a particular tag, and the attributes can be a global like ID or class, or you can also have attributes which are specific to a particular element. Like in this case, for an anchor tag, you have a href attribute. All right, understood, guys, so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you might be wondering, sir, I know this is a ID you have added. Then what is it going to change? Because just by adding the ID, there is no change in the output. The paragraph still looks the same, and heading two also looks the same. Now the miracle will happen whenever we use what is known as style tag. Style tag is basically to add the style or the cascading style sheets within the HTML file. This, whenever we use a style tag in the HTML file itself, then this is called as internal styling, internal CSS. Okay, this is called as internal CSS whenever you use a style tag. And always remember, style tag is always used within the head tag. So you can't use the style tag somewhere in body or anything. The ideal or the best practice is always use the style tag within the head tag. Now suppose I have added a ID called head 1, and let's say ID head 1, and then I'm going to change let's say background color coral. Okay, now just see this. Now at this point in time, don't worry about what is this, sir, you added a hash symbol and all. We will try to see whenever we try to learn what is known as uh, CSS. Okay, so whenever we learn the cascading style sheet, we will come to know what this is within the style tag that you are adding. But for now, just understand there is a style tag, okay, which will add the styling to the HTML elements. And these elements use the attributes called as id, or there can be a class as well. Class is also an attribute. CLASS class I can name as uh, head homepage. I'm saying just a there is a class or a classification or a that defines the home page. Now, what I have talked about is attribute will modify or change or add some value or enhancements to the element. Here, what I have done, I have defined an ID or an identifier called H1, head 1. And this head 1, I am selecting that in a CSS file and changing the background color to coral. If I save it and see, the H1 element has changed its background color to coral color. And how is this happening? There is no change in the element. The element still be the same, H1 element. But the look and feel, the styling of it is modified because of this using an attribute ID. And this ID have been selected to modify or style the heading H1 element. So are you guys clear so far?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that okay? Okay, good. So now, so wherever you do not understand, guys, please let me know where you do not understand. Okay. So I can stop there and explain you once again. All right. Okay. Now, so the question now comes is a style attribute. Okay. We saw that a style attribute here. A style attribute is a global attribute, which means it can be added to. Now, there is a style. What you have seen here is a style element. Okay. The style can be attribute as well. Like, for example, here, let's say there is a heading 1. I can say I will add an attribute called style. So whenever I add this style as an attribute, I'm going to add within the open tag. Whereas this style is a style element. Okay, it has an opening tag and closing tag. Whereas this style is an attribute. It is only specific to this element. Okay, whereas this style is an element of HTML where you can make a style for any elements by just by referring to them through an ID or a class name, whatever it is. Okay, now let's talk about this style attribute. Style equal to then the value. Now let's say the same thing. I want to change it. A background color is equal to indigo. Let's say. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm using a style attribute, and style attribute is a global attribute where I am changing the background color of H2 element to indigo color. Let's go ahead and see the output here. So this is what you will see. So I have changed the background color to indigo. And this is happening because of the attribute called style, which is global attribute. So global attribute containing the styling declaration to be applied to the elements such as color, font size, and all that. So, and again, style attribute and style element have the same purpose of allowing a quick styling. All right, they both have the same purpose. They allow you to style, but style attribute will only style to a particular element where it is used, whereas the style element has an open tag and closed tag, and it can style any element in a web page by using the selectors. We call this as selectors. We'll come to that what selectors is when we talk about CSS. So this selector is a ID selector because of this ID name. There is also a class selector. I can go ahead and change that by using the class name as well. So ID and class names are very often used to modify the or style the HTML elements. All right. Now let's go ahead and understand what is known as, again, we saw this as well, right? Style tag in the same way. what you have seen, this one, this is the style element, open and close style element. It is basically contains the cascading style sheet rules, CSS rules. Like for example, we have added in within the head tag, there will be a style tag open and close, and I'm using a paragraph, an element selector. This is called the element selector, which means all the paragraphs will be changed to the color green. All right. This is again a paragraph selector. We can say a ID selector, paragraph selector, class selector. I mean, a lot of things are there, but we'll just now understand what it means is for all the paragraphs, I'm changing the font color to green. That is what this means. All right. And this has to be defined within the style selector and style element. Okay. Makes sense, guys? Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. Good. Now let's go to understand important structural usage of what is known as a division element. Okay, division, as the name itself suggests, division is a section. I mean, it's kind of a logical grouping of certain information. All right. So division element is a generic container for flow content, which means it is kind of a container where you can put certain details. Like for example, if you want to add a blog, there could be a division which can contains all the blogs within that. Okay, then that will be a container for all those blogs. It is just a structure that is holding all the other elements within it. Like a division can have multiple paragraphs. All right, in that way. So division tag is a block level element, which means obviously it will start always on a new line. All right. Now let's take this example. Let's say this one. We have added, I'll copy this text. Maybe I'll add it somewhere here. So what it is doing, I have added a division, open tag and close tag. Inside this division, there is an attribute that is added. Okay. Like this is a division tag. Division tag contains two paragraphs, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. Okay. This is two paragraphs. And if I see the output, what it contains, this is 1, this is 2. And maybe I'll add a HR here just to separate it. So after this, these two are the two paragraphs and they are within a division. And if I want to add a color to it, I mean, this is just a styling. Style is a global attribute and it is having a style name as color and value is attribute name as color and attribute value is purple. So this will be changed to the purple color, which means what I'm trying to do here, I'm not adding to individual paragraphs, which means whenever I try to add a style to a division, any element that goes within it will be affected by that styling. Okay, so that is the beauty of it. And it is the same case with any other element as well. Maybe we in the next we'll also talk about section. Section is again another HTML element which can contains div. Lot of divs can be there, and this div can contain a paragraph, okay? And this paragraph can contain a span. So all that is fine. This is how it will be structured. Okay, div is the outermost. Then before the div section, there is also something called as main. Okay, so we'll come to that. Main might contain multiple sections. All right, and these sections can have multiple divs. Divs can have paragraphs and all that. Okay, I mean this is a best practice, mind you. I'm not saying this is how it should be. Need not be, but this is the best way to do it. All right. So understood, guys, division?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the next one, what we have is a span. As you have already seen that span is an inline element or it is also a container, but it is more of an inline container. So you can have span is very much like div, but div is a block element, whereas span is an inline element. Only difference is that. And a div can contain span element. Span cannot contain a div element. even though HTML allows you to, but that is not the ideal way to do it. So always block will contain a inline element. And span can have many global attributes, and every attribute can be there. Global attributes can be used onto the span and use it. That is absolutely fine. Like for example, here we have created a paragraph. Let's say I'll copy this and I'll just show you. So what is this? Paragraph is there. Leo Messi is. Then I'm adding the best player who ever played for FC Barcelona. Okay, this is the paragraph. Inside that paragraph, there is a span text. Okay, let me remove this and let's show you the simple way. A paragraph contains a span, open and close. It says best player. Now, if I just show you this output, it doesn't look any difference. Okay, it is just a simple way of representing a paragraph. Now suppose I want to highlight this or change the color to it or do a underline or anything, I can do that using a span and then add a global attribute to it like style. Now what I'm trying to do here, I have added a style attribute with color. This is a hexacode. It is representing a blue. Now if I save it, if you observe, this text which is under span is now in blue color because I have utilized this span tag in order to make these two words stand out with a different color. So that is how you can use these formats or structural elements where you can play around how you can show a web page content onto a browser. Make sense, guys, so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Then the next is the anchor tag. We have already seen anchor tag. Anchor tag is basically for hyperlinks. Hyperlinks is when you want to connect two different HTML files. Okay. So what is happening here in this anchor tag that we saw? Google. Here, what we did was, maybe I'll copy it at the bottom, let's say. Understanding, yeah. Now this is an anchor tag, open tag, and this is a closed tag, and this is an enclosed content. In the open tag, there is an attribute called href, and the value is nothing but a link. Now currently this is linking to the external file. All right, and I can even link the file within the page itself. Like for example, here there is a skills app. Okay, now in this there are many hyperlinks. Like for example, if I go to bootcamp courses, right, if you see here there is a full stack development. The moment I click this, it will take me to a different page which is scfd.html inside this. Now this page will be displayed here, which is all this is happening within the website. Okay, this is called internal referencing. Okay, so internally you are referencing or providing a linking to the multiple web pages. And there can also be a case where you can go ahead and link to an external like this. This is an index.html file, but I am linking Google page here. The moment I click on it, it will take me to the google.com. This is called external linking. All this is happening because of the hyperlinks, which is provided by anchor tag. Okay, makes sense. So now I'll stop it right here. And any questions, guys, so far?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So was that is it like you were able to comprehend today and understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So Nale will again join the same time, guys. Maybe at the same time at 8 p.m. tomorrow. We'll try to. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow is a holy. So tomorrow is a holy, guys. Happy Holi to all of you. ನಾಳೆ ಹೋಳಿನೇ ಇದೆ ರೀ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾಳೆ ಏನು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ. But ನಾಳೆ ನಾಡ್ದಿರಲ್ಲ. The moment you come back on Monday, right? We will try to take 2 hours. Okay. Monday
Yes,
13th
sir.
2 hours, and this 8th and 9th we won't be having any session, but on 13th and 14th we will have 2 hours of session. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right, guys. Enjoy your time, and you guys have a good holiday. Thanks, guys.